It's a beautiful day to sit out in the park and talk about The Shining. So, if anyone has looked at this channel before, they'll notice that one of the most popular videos I've ever done was a Shining video. The reason we're talking about The Shining today is because I just got a very exciting delivery. So I thought it'd be nice to share it, and immortalize this moment. I've had this heavy Amazon package sitting in my house for weeks because even though I wanted to tear it open immediately, I wanted to record the experience. It's kind of an unboxing video. It's more of a window into my obsession with The Shining. Yeah, I guess let's just pop this bad boy open. I'm so excited. Oh my God, the size of this thing. Oh, it's so heavy. Oh my God. Yes, this is absolutely beautiful. I feel like I need to go back a little bit and tell you a little bit about my journey, as it were, with The Shining. Shining is one of those movies that when I was a kid, for whatever reason, I was allowed to watch it. And I remember being sick home from school a few times and my mom taking me down to the video shop to rent it out. And it was just almost like a comfort movie. And I think one of the things I love so much about The Shining is that even a kid can just watch it and enjoy it as a surface level horror movie. It's, cabin fever, it's claustrophobic, it's cat and mouse. But it's the kind of movie that the more you watch it, it rewards you with new information. And every time you see this movie, you'll see new things. Now, I'm not someone who's seen this movie 1,000 times. I don't want to ruin the experience for myself, but I've probably seen it, a good 20 times over the course of my life. It wasn't until I'd say my early 20s, around the time when I started enjoying films more deeply. I was I had worked in a video store for a while. I'd worked on some films and I was going to film school. And I remember going to see a screening of The Shining around Halloween in the cinema in Dublin, and just seeing all of these things that I'd never seen before. And that began, I would say, a good solid 4-year obsession where all I read about was The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, and behind the scenes of what was kind of going on. That journey led me to the Stanley Kubrick Archive, which is based in a college in London. What's great about that is you can go there as a member of the public. At least at the time you could. I don't know if it's changed now. You'd book some time, it's very organized. You sit in a room and they have a little catalog with that's divided up based on Stanley Kubrick films. And there's a section for The Shining and so on. And in that catalogue, you can request items and you fill out a docket and someone goes off and brings you back items. For me at the time, I was determined to find a script for The Shining, okay? And any of the real hardcore Shining fans here are probably kind of shaking their heads here, because what I discovered was that there was never really a shooting script for The Shining. You'll see in the film, or in the behind the scenes documentary, Kubrick on set rewriting day of shoot, handing out actors fresh pages. The script was constantly being rewritten, which isn't the craziest thing in the world. That does happen on films, but this film in particular, they took Stephen King's book and they said, yeah, we're going to make something that's like that. And then they had some sort of script. Kubrick had a co-writer, and then they basically just constantly shot and rewrote and shot and rewrote and edited, and as they went along, they generated pages and pages and pages of content that they sometimes filmed and sometimes didn't. So in the archive, there's basically a big box of all different versions of drafts of the script, and a lot of them you can actually see Stanley Kubrick's notes in the margins, where he's writing various directions he has for Jack Nicholson, how to perform certain scenes and stuff. It's really if you're a real film nerd, it's gold. This is great. There's also in the Stanley Kubrick Archive, there's some props, some famous props like the stacks of pages of all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. There's behind the scenes photos, stills, a lot of which at the time when I went there, this was like maybe over 10 years ago. Don't worry, I promise I'll get to this shortly, but I'm still setting it up. At the time, a lot of these photos hadn't been seen by the public. So I remember going through these photos and seeing things that I had never seen on the internet before. It was really exciting. There was a Stanley Kubrick exhibit happening in Los Angeles, and I was like a million miles away from LA. So I didn't get to see a lot of the kind of famous props like Jack's like jacket and the twins' clothes and the typewriter, all these things. But they did have one prop, maybe they had a few copies of it, and it was a big scrapbook, okay? And that's important because that comes into play with this new book here. As well as going to the Stanley Kubrick Archive, what I also did was I spent a lot of time on YouTube, online, just delving into that rabbit hole of, you know, theories and hidden messages and conspiracies, and there's a lot of stuff that just is pure nonsense. But then there's some stuff that's really interesting. And a lot of that kind of culminated in this documentary called Room 237. I don't know if you've seen it. I was very excited for that at the time, but it ended up actually being more about obsession than The Shining. It's like, I don't need you to tell me I'm obsessed with The Shining, okay? Tell me about The Shining. So this book was compiled by the film director Lee Unkrich, I think I'm saying that name, or Unkrich, I don't know. It was made by Taschen, who make these really high-end, beautiful, like hardbound books on all sorts of different topics. There's actually a Stanley Kubrick Archives book that kind of is more of an overview of the Stanley Kubrick Archives. What was crazy about this was when this was first announced, I think like a lot of The Shining fans, I was kind of devastated because the book promised, as it says on the back, an unprecedented in-depth look at the making of Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece of modern horror, featuring extensive new interviews with the cast and crew, rare production ephemera, and hundreds of never-before-seen images across 2 volumes. So suddenly there's this whole new treasure trove of information about The Shining available to the public. But the first edition was limited to like 1,500 copies, I think, and the price tag was literally in the thousands. So the reason this is significant is because just recently, at the start of 2025, the book has become available as more, I don't even know if you call this mass market, but it's available to the public. It's like, I think I got this for like €120 on Amazon. I would happily pay that because I was considering at one point dropping a few grand on this book. And if I had have done that, like honestly right now, I'd be pretty devastated because, okay, like a collector's edition is great, and you know, having one of like 1,500 copies, that's exciting, but I would rather have the money in my pocket and then have the information in a somewhat consumable form. This thing is a beast anyway, so I'm very happy with this purchase. Now, let's just open this guy and get, like, you know, relieve some of that tension, the anticipation. I'm so excited. Literally, you'll rarely see me unboxing something, but this is special. Oh, don't want to get that bit of plastic. Let that bit of plastic get away. Oh my God. The book was co-written by Lee Unkrich and J.W. Rinzler. J.W. Rinzler is a very celebrated biographer. So Lee Unkrich is another filmmaker like myself. Maybe he's a little bit more successful. He's done a few films you might have heard of. He was like, came to this with like the Shining obsession, with the Stanley Kubrick obsession, wanting to know more. And then J.W. Rinzler helped him, I guess, put it all together with his experience of, you know, creating these big tome-like biographies. Now, what me and Lee Unkrich also have in common is he went to the Stanley Kubrick Archive and dug through all of these, you know, papers and props and logs and all of this documentation about The Shining to compile it into this book. And look at this. Look at this. I'm breaking this box. I don't care. 2 beautiful like leather-bound books. I don't know what these are. This is the scrapbook. This is a beautiful item here. Now, I actually did go to the Taschen store in LA where they had the original version of this book, and I'm pretty sure that their version of scrapbook was a lot bigger, right? So, bigger book, but basically this is a photo album, okay? So, oh, beautiful, very exciting, right? We'll go through this now more in a minute. What's important about the scrapbook is, for the keen observer, you'll notice that when Jack is writing the great American novel in the hotel, at his writing desk, there's a big, like, ugly old scrapbook just sitting on the corner of his desk in the foreground of the frame. I can actually see it here. I opened to a page where it's in the background there. It's never really kind of alluded to. I think there's a moment in the final cut of the film where he shakes it at Wendy, like when he's giving out to her. But there's actually a scene written and cut from the film, going back to like all the different versions of the script. I don't think this scene was ever actually shot. And I think this scene is actually available online. It resurfaced a few years ago. But basically, there's a scene where we know he's in the hotel, he's trying to write his novel. I guess he went to this hotel, wanted to write a novel, not knowing what the novel was going to be about, which is like, you know, already like setting yourself up for failure, I guess, as a writer. And he finds this creepy old scrapbook. He flips through it, and what he finds in the scrapbook is, and I'm pretty sure this is in the Stephen King book as well, it's been so long since I've read it. He flips through it and he finds newspaper cuttings of all of this crazy stuff that's happened, you know, all of these like deaths and suicides and, you know, missing children and all of these like tragedies basically. And he finds that they are all basically happened in this hotel, in the Overlook Hotel. And then the scene continues and he's talking to Wendy and he's holding the scrapbook and he's like, I think there might be a book in here, you know? He's gonna base his book on the hotel. So we're reading a book or watching a movie about a guy who's writing a book about a kind of haunted or, you know, a hotel that's, you know, been full of all of this tragedy. So I think that's really incredible, but for whatever reason, Kubrick never filmed it. I don't think they ever filmed it, but the scrapbook did make it into a lot of shots. I held the real scrapbook in the Stanley Kubrick Archive and I flipped through the pages, and I remember at the time taking down notes in my journal of some of the, you know, bizarre articles that were written in it. I thought it was so cool. And I heard that I think Kubrick had like a journalist friend of his write these artificial articles about things that happened in the hotel, but I don't think it like covers the entire book. I think it's just like on a few pages that would be like kind of, you know, for screen, and then there's lots of like blank pages. But then what they've done is they've taken that idea, and I'm pretty sure, yes, they have added, we have them here. Former senator dies of heart attack at hotel. Boy's dog finds skeleton of baby at mountain hotel. Woman drowns in bathtub as hotel celebrates July 4th. So, you know, the famous bathtub scene, there's a woman dead in the bath. Tragedy at the Overlook. Sugarman ends life at Overlook Hotel. And there's like paragraphs here of like what's been said. I can't wait to read all of this. And like I said, when I held the real version of this, I was like 23 or 24. So that's like, you know, a little over 10 years ago. So I can't remember everything that was in it. But yeah, they've really done a great job kind of replicating it here. It's beautiful. It's really nicely put together. I mean, again, that's the Taschen kind of quality. You are paying for that quality. Like this is like, you know, not your typical coffee table book. So yeah, so then we have photos of the set. Yeah, it's really just incredible. And like, I think, you know, like anytime like there's a film production happening, there's either photographers who are on set capturing, you know, promotional stills of the film, trying to recreate the scene that the cinematographer is capturing through the cinema camera, or they're capturing behind the scenes photos, they're capturing publicity stills. But then also, you know, in pre-production, you'll have, you know, the costume department, the continuity department, locations, set builders, all these people, and particularly back at a time before people had like, you know, smartphones, Hey, there's a doggy. Hello. Hey. Ah. At a time before people, had smartphones, people would take like decent photos of sets, sets and for the record and to communicate with each other about how things were going to be planned. So here we're seeing the sets, the designs, kind of empty as we never saw them like in the film, which I think is really exciting for a movie nerd. I'm gonna try to skip ahead here. There's lots of great behind the scenes photos of like Jack Nicholson interacting with extras. There's a creepy photo of the old lady from the bathtub. You're also seeing familiar scenes from The Shining that are kind of burnt into your brain. You're seeing them from different angles that you've never seen them before, because maybe they shot different kind of coverage, or the photographer just got in there and just took a different angle. We're seeing crew members, Danny's father, Jim Lloyd, sitting in the Room 237 set. This is wonderful. Like, this is so great. We're seeing Leon Vitali, who's like, famously Kubrick's right-hand man, and there's that great documentary film worker about him. Oh, this is them talking about the scrapbook, look. So I guess it was shot. That's crazy. That's so cool. This, every time I see this photo, it gives me chills. I saw this when I opened the Taschen book in the store in LA. This is a photo of Vivian Kubrick on the set. And to my knowledge, before this book was put together, this photo, I'm pretty sure you couldn't find this photo online. Like, I never saw this, like, to the point that when I saw this, it just gave me chills, because if anyone has ever bought one of these, a Shining DVD or Blu-ray, everyone knows there's a brilliant behind the scenes making of documentary on The Shining. And it's better than most on-set, happening in real time documentaries made about a film, because it's made by Vivian Kubrick. And this photo is of her with her camera on her shoulder. And she is kind of an elusive figure. She's kind of a tragic figure in real life, if you ever do any kind of reading about her. So it's crazy to see her so young and like in the thick of it. Like in the documentary, she does like point the camera at a mirror at one point, and you can see her, and she talks about how she like sellotaped like a tape recorder and a microphone on top of this camera. So she was actually able to get pretty decent sound, which is like, that's not common. Like if you're like running around a film set as like, I don't know, she was probably barely in her 20s if she was, but like at that young of an age, run around a film set, it just so happens your dad is like running the set, so you're gonna get that little bit more access to the actors, maybe have a little bit more confidence to go into parts of the set that someone who's hired to do camera work from the outside might feel less comfortable kind of doing. So yeah, I just feel that is such an important photo. Also the style and the fashion is just, it's so unusual. So that's a little taster of this beautiful scrapbook, which I can't wait to get through. Now we're on to the main event, and this is really like what I have been dying to get my mitts on. This is something I have never touched. This, when I went to the Tashan store, they didn't allow me to read this, or they didn't offer this. This thick 1,000-page, I think. How many pages? Like, yeah, almost 1,000-page, like, tome, all on behind the scenes of The Shining. Like, some guys get excited about the World Cup, some guys get excited about the Olympics, or like, an MMA fight. This is that for me, okay? This is like, I'm gonna take my time with this. I'm not even gonna devour it. I'm just gonna like peruse through this over the next few years and come back adding to my already encyclopedic level of Shining knowledge, stuff that I didn't know. There's a lot that I don't know. As much as there is online, a lot of it is kind of, anecdotal, theoretical kind of stuff. And this has kind of the facts of how it all went down. Probably a lot of boring, information, but I don't care. I just really want to dig in. And if I ever get a chance to be on one of those game shows like Mastermind or something like that, this will be my mastermind topic. There's a foreword by Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg was famously a big Kubrick fan. There's videos of Spielberg online just like kind of nerding out about Kubrick. I think the movie 2001 Space Odyssey like changed his life. I think I heard a story where Spielberg was drafted to the Vietnam War on the day that he had like tickets to go see 2001 A Space Odyssey, and he was like, oh, I guess, my whole life is going to change now, but I still have to go to this movie. I said he went to the cinema and saw the film and just sat outside on the curb afterwards, just blown away by the movie and not thinking about his draft at all. Oh my God, I'm just like, this is like the stuff of dreams for me. So I think that's all I kind of have to say for now. Maybe once I've, assimilated all of this knowledge, I'll come back and I'll do another video with updates on what I've learned. But I'm also due a rewatch of The Shining, so maybe I'll read some of this and I'll go back and watch The Shining, and then I'll read some more. But that's the end of the video. Thanks for hanging out with me, and do the YouTube thing, like and subscribe and comment. Tell me if there's anything I missed, or tell me what your favorite theories about The Shining, or tell me what's something you saw happening in The Shining that maybe you didn't realize you saw the first time around. Thanks so much.